Ekonene. So jana kuna vile Boni alifikishwa kotini and originally ilikuwa tumeambiwa alikuwa nafaa kuchajiwa na terrorism, but vile alifika kotini aliend up akichajiwa na nini. The Standard walikomeandika activist Boniface Mwangi to be charged at Kahawa Law Courts for possessing an ammunition, 3 tear gas canisters without lawful authority. So this is what they ended up charging him with, and this is one of the situations whereby the president ends up getting an L without actually needing to get the L. Ama kuzini laws flani ile the presidential advisors, kuna sele licheki kwa comments wako like zizi mwafu nasemaje this thing, it's the president, maybe the president doesn't even know who Boniface Mwangi is. I'm like, no, the president knows. Alafu ikabaki mini remind like the ngakale time nilisemaga that Ruto ashaisiu Boni for defamation. The defamation lawsuit will come from this nini kile Boni alikuwa ameandika, I hope deputy president has no plans of ooring me the way he oored the old friend Jacob Juma, a fellow thief who became a whistleblower. So after Boni andike hii ilikuwa September 28th 2016, this is how now he ended up suing him for defamation. So ni msana mjua, si ati ni kitu amjui. Alafu neza sema anyone who can claim they don't know Boniface Mwangi in Kenya is being dishonest. This goes from the late Kibaki akiwa place yuko to Uhuru to Ruto to Raila, kila mtu anajua umse. Yeah, so that's one thing that we know for sure. So umse of course alienda pa akiwa released, na akiwa released like what was he chanting? Of course alikuwa na chant one time. So this is zile tunasema where Ruto ends up receiving an L that he does not need. Why? Because the clowns around him are so overprotective. Because yes, neza baki nimemtetea niseme like maybe Raya taijui watu wanashikwa hivi, lakini it all depends with who have you surrounded yourself with. If you've surrounded yourself with clowns, the clowns are going to, unajua, inasemekanaga like if you take clowns to a palace, it turns into a circus, and that's what has ended up happening. Wacha tucheki Boni.
One time! I'm a free man! Yeah! To my family! Hey! Thank you, Ronge. Sandeni sana. How was
So nacheki hapa, so nikiangalia hii naona ni the president receiving an L that he did not need, and then on top of that of course kakuna msee moja ule wagana bambika na kukava hizi vitu ni umsa naitwa Larry Madowo. So Larry pia alikuwa around akireport hii story na alienda pa akireport for CNN. So nacheki saizi what ends up happening is the president ends up looking like this guy who is just clueless and is trying to take Kenya back to times that we've already gone past. So kwa CNN kwa ni Kenyan human rights activist freed on bail. Wacha tusikie kila vile Larry alikava.
It's called Mageuzi Hub. Mageuzi means revolution in Swahili. And he told CNN this evening he will not be intimidated, he will not be stopped, he will keep organizing for regime change because the government of President William Ruto is not working for the people. And many in the civil society and legal community in Kenya see these charges of terrorism, arson, and money laundering used against protesters, more than 70 have been charged with some of those offenses, as a weaponization of the criminal justice system to silence dissent, to make sure that people find it too expensive to go out and protest. And this is what Boniface Mwangi said after he was released.
If you look at the search warrant, say that they have information that I use Mageuzi to distribute money to goons. I have never worked with goons my entire life. The people that I've worked with my entire life are actually present here. The guys who are singing in court, I know every single one of them.
Macheki. So now when such a headline is going out there, the way that Ruto ends up looking is he ends up looking like a dictator or a dictator wannabe. And that's what you need. And this is sad because this is unnecessary. Kuna vitu musemaga like Uhuru did a lot of wrongs. And Uhuru has been sanitized to a certain level that people pretend that all these killings that are happening under Ruto didn't happen under Uhuru. They happened. And that's why vile Ruto aligetigi power, when at that point when he was loved kabisa, he was there, extrajudicial killings will be a thing of the past. This will never happen. Rivayala will never happen again. All these things happen under Uhuru. So these things have been happening. The difference is Uhuru knew when to back down. and when to disappear, when to keep quiet, when to let things happen. Ruto does not know to do that. Yani Ruto ni msewa inasemekanaga hands on. He wants to be doing everything. Well, sometimes you just need to do nothing and just chill out and be like, you know what, asa we protest, Sabasaba ime happen. After Sabasaba wasa try kuitisha protest ingine, it never happened. People went on with work as usual. That's a win. Afterwards kukakuwa na history ya boy wake, mtoi wake launch ma 3, watu wakaja. That's a win. Chill, tulia. But umset ajuagi stories za kuchill. So another thing that imeenda happen na hii story, of course, imekuwa ni the independence of the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. That has been called into question. So kulikuwa na the head of LSK alibaki ameandika, ilikuwa ni LSK calls for substitution of terrorism charges in protest related cases with proportionate ones under the Penal Code and Public Order Act, urges ODPP to reclaim independence, because the ODPP has shown us that there is zero independence. If you want to know how bad the ODPP is hapa Kenya, lazima ubaki umekumbuka. There is one thing mupendaga kusema, that if you are to go to any street in Kenya, and especially a street that has Kenyans who have internet access, and you ask them who Ingonga is, they won't think about Renson. The first person they'll think about ni ule mse wa hii country inaitwa nini, Equatorial Guinea. That's how bad umse wa Kenya anadu, that no one knows about him. Najua everyone knows about Ingonga ule mwingine, but hatujui jua umse. So walikuwa release statement, ilikuwa ni the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, press statement on charges under the Prevention of Terrorism Act. Then ikakuwa the office of the ODPP acknowledges the ongoing national discourse sparked by recent actions following the events of 25th June and 7th July and wishes to reiterate as follows. The ODPP handles the vital role of a free press and upholds, that is, the vital role of a free press and a vibrant civil society in fostering accountability and strengthening democratic governance. However, the charges under the Prevention of Terrorism Act should be understood within the framework of established legal thresholds and national security imperatives rather than interpreted as efforts to suppress legitimate political expression. That's what they are. Hii ni kizungu mingi. Then akaendelea, preliminary investigations indicate that attacks on public offices, courts, police stations and government personnel were not spontaneous demonstrations but calculated and coordinated acts of violence by Boniface Mwangi, the guy who's been around since Kuza Kibaki, never used terrorism. Lafu, he was around time ya Uhuru, didn't use terrorism. Ama this is where you tell us that his last name betrays him, and since now Ruto is a different tribe, now he's using terrorism. Achageni ujinga. Sawa, okay. So tuendelee. Ikakuwa these incidents aim to cripple essential government operations, instill fear and erode public trust in democratic institutions. Okay, I think I need to say about that. All these attacks that have happened, I think we've all established that the goons were mostly government-sponsored goons. So this has nothing to do with protesters. These stories are attack like government institutions, that's not protesters, that's goons. No single person has been arrested kama Bibarungu. Everyone who's been arrested has been arrested wakiwa unarmed, and it can be clearly seen that they are protesters. So this is some bullshit. Then wakaendelea ikakuwa ni Chief Justice Honorable Martha Koome speaking on 26th of June after inspecting the damage at the Kikuyu Law Courts, which was touched during the demonstrations, described the incident as not merely an act perpetrated by criminal elements, but an act of terrorism. Okay, damn. I didn't know she's the one who brought this bullshit. Okay, then Kendelia, under sections 2 and 4 of the Prevention of Terrorism Act, such actions qualify as act of terrorism when intended to cause serious disruption of essential services, intimidate the public or government, or create widespread fear through targeted destruction. You know, the one guy who we are 100% sure cannot do that is Boniface Mwangi. He's been one of the people who asks for law and order and huu ni msee alikuwa accused vile mushindaga nikisema na waseka kina Gaitho of stopping the revolution last year because he was the guy telling people go home as soon as parliament was invaded. He was advising wase to go home akiwaambia the police were going to use maximum violence, and it's clear that's the reason why the charges came from terrorism to whatever they are talking about, where a spent cartridge inaitwa ni ammunition. Then ikaendelea, the ODPP is aware of public concerns regarding the potential misuse of terrorism legislation. We wish to reassure the public that all charges have been brought strictly based on available evidence. Which evidence? You just dropped a case. Each accused individual will be accorded a fair trial, legal representation, and full access to due process in line with the Bill of Rights under the Constitution of Kenya. The ODPP remains committed to executing its constitutional mandate in accordance with the law, public interest, and administration of justice. There's no public interest in you arresting activists. So this is just your own bullshit. And this is a very sad state of affairs where we have a situation whereby now watu watakuwa kikaa chini wanafikiria that hii kitu ina happen hapa kwa hizi streets ni terrorism. Terrorism is what happened kwa kina Dusit. Terrorism is what happened at Westgate. Eko nene. So, nimeinterrupt show kukupatia some good news. Are you in the UK? Are you in Canada? Are you in Europe? You know what? Good news. Lemfi imefika jo. So, ukiwa masaiza US, ukiwa UK, ukiwa Canada, ukiwa Europe, bado unzabaki umetuma pesa through Lemfi. No sahau, Lemfi ukupatiaga the best exchange rates, na pia ile story ya $20 cashback on your first transaction, ile kwa equivalent to $100, hiyo bado iko. So, unangoja nini jo? Usahau tumia promo code ikonene. Yes? Alafu, pia kitu moja na nibamba saizi juu ya Lemfi ni the fact that si lazima ubaki umeseti do kwa your mobile wallet, uzabaki umetransfer do direct from your debit card ikikuja. Alafu the exchanges themselves zinakuwaga instant. Alafu saizi pia kitu mushinaka nikiambia wasi wako US, jua still unzalipa bills za maparo ka uko maju. Uzalipa aje? Cause till numbers na pay bills pia ziko supported na Lemfi. So nangoja nini? Baki umeinstall Lemfi. Yes? Na umesikia vile nimesema US, UK, Canada, Europe. Chukueni Lemfi. Chap chap. Kauko Dubai, masaiza UAE. Lemfi ina come soon. Alafu msisahau jo kutumia promo code ikonene. Unangoja nini? Lemfi. International payments for everyone. Let's go back to the show. What happened at Garissa University? What happened at the bomb blast? Hizi stories zingine za the government hiring goons, the goons cause damage, and then innocent people are accused of doing that damage. It's sad because there's no way we can see goons walking around Narungus and not a single goon is arrested. But unarmed people we know who are not violent are arrested left, right, and center, and the government comes up with these terrorism charges. And the question is, if you've arrested Boni and you've asked Boni to show up, why haven't you even sat down with the Nairobi governor so that the Nairobi governor can explain? Ase walikuwa wanatembea wakisema Sakaja Igwe tumesekiwa Nairobi. Those were goons. They ended up like bringing terror to Nairobians. And if it was not for border riders like coming together to control them, the police were walking with them. And that's the situation that we had. Like Nairobi was ilikuwa terrifying, if that's the word to use. So it's very sad nikiangalia gawase kama Ubuda anaitwa Ingonga Renson, the people who end up, I don't know what happens with Africa, and or maybe let me talk about Kenya, where you get a job and it's an independent job, but you're so scared of doing your job that you end up all being under the executive. Whatever the executive wants is what you end up doing. And this is a situation where we end up with, where whatever you're saying and whatever Murkomen is saying is the same thing. Because Murkomen last week on Friday alibaki release his statement. Ilikuwa Ministry of Interior and National Administration, then ikakuwa Policy Directive number 1 of 2025 on conditions as to the use of force and firearms. Then akaendelea pursuant and in accordance with Article 245 4 and 245.5 of the Constitution of Kenya, have today issued the enclosed policy directive on the conditions as to the use of force and firearms by the National Police Service. Kumbuka tuliambiwa na Ruto that the police service is independent, yes? Okay, tuendelee. These directives are further to the provision of Section 61, Schedule 6A and 6B of the National Police Act. Then kakuwa story more bapo, then your kind attention is highly appreciated. And what is worrying with this is a situation whereby you have the Cabinet Secretary of Interior trying to encourage the police to use lethal force. In a civilized society, that's the term that I'm going to use, it would be the other way around. It would be a situation whereby the Interior anaambia will say, yes, I know there's chaos, but let's try our best not to kill anyone. And hii ndio kitu moja ni bambaga, because say on a random Sunday tenda achukue inue tu Bible na inue, alafu a lot of Kenyans who are on his side politically will not see anything wrong with that. I used to be a Christian, and I remember one of the rules was thou shalt not kill. And anywhere in the world, killing inakuwaga taken as the biggest crime. So in a situation whereby you have the Cabinet Secretary trying to justify that and trying to encourage the police like ua damn, alafu baadaye mnaenda mnaomba, alafu ile time nikiwaambia that you're just like me, you don't believe there's anyone up there, because if you actually believed that person was up there, you'd respect him enough to respect the book. And in his book, one of the rules inakuwa gani? Thou shalt not kill. You don't need to know that as a decent human being. I don't have that book, and of course I know that rule. I know that human life is sacred and we should always try to preserve it. I also know the fact that jail is equivalent to like the ultimate punishment. So a lot of people, if they are found committing these crimes, if they are jailed, they still regret. You don't have to be out here encouraging the police to use lethal force. So mse albaki ameka hiyo nini, alafu ilikuwa the use of force. A police officer may use force and firearms only according to the rules. A police officer may use force. Force must never be used. No additional force is lawful. But you're the one who's encouraging histories of force. Paka wakaenda wametumia vitu kadhaa. De-escalation. That's what I was talking about. You remember me? That guy who does not believe that there is life after death. The first thing that I'd do is de-escalation. It would be, how do we preserve human life? And this is an opportunity for the Ruto government. I know you people are businessmen. You don't care about Kenya. All you're trying to do is business. All you're trying to do is make a profit. Kumbuka, you have the profits that are coming in after you install the cameras in police stations so that another Albert Ojwang situation doesn't happen. Remember that? Ama you think we don't know that you're planning to spend a lot of money, inflated budgets, get some low quality cameras? We know that shit. And these low quality cameras will be bought at very exorbitant prices and they'll be replaced every 2 days. That one we know. Do you know where another corruption opportunity for nyinyi iko? Tasers. Buy some tasers. You know. And people will feel pain, but at least if they don't have any pre-existing conditions, a lot of them will survive. So maybe that, because the only thing, like we have to even negotiate na hii gava on the amount of violence one is unleashed on CC. Like it's interesting, man. Like nataingia kuimagine ukiangalia the lottery of life, because life inakuwaga lottery where people are born in different countries. Utrai kuimagine kuna msamezaliwa Japan, kule train inachelewa, alafu the cabinet secretary wa transport ana resign. Sisi tuko in a situation whereby over 60 people were dead in less than a month. The cabinet secretary ana itisha makara wa kuwe more violent. You understand? Alafu sisi ni wa Kristo. Kumbuka like there is no point where we'll not be reminded vile sisi ni wa Kristo. Wa Japan kule si wa Kristo. Shinto is not even a religion. Raya zisizo za kawaida. Like even the culture itself, ukisikia kuna vitu za ajab kwa hiyo culture yao. Ile familia uoga, the whole family mnaoganga jo. Buddha, mother, watu wenye wote mkondethe mnaoga. but still even with hizo vitu zile tunaweza chukua kama weird, your society ina respect human life and human decency so much that kulikuwa na time ingine pia kitu kimoja ile happened Japan, ile I think ilikuwa Fukushima, vile kulikuwa na ile leak, kuna semekana that kunaweza kuwa na leak from a nuclear plant. A cabinet secretary ama a minister, but what namuita cabinet secretary so that we as Kenyans can understand what I'm talking about, alienda pameenda kwa hiyo plant akakunywa maji kuprovia si wengine wote that it's safe. Try and imagine that situation in Kenya where we didn't. Saizi vile kina Ruto wanashinda wakituambia that water clean maji ya Nairobi River mpaka ikuwe tunaweza ikunywa, unafikiria wenyewe wataikunywa? And this is the difference in leadership. And we feel like in that moment tutakam kurealize that it's an honor to serve. Like this is an honor that it's only bestowed upon very few people on earth. Like Kenya, population ya Kenya so far ni I think size in 55 million. But do you know how many people have lived in Kenya since 1963? I'm sure ni watu at least maybe 150 million. Because kuna watu wamededi, watu ni wengi sana wamededi. How of this 150 million? William Samoei Ruto, you're one of the 5 people who've gotten a chance to run a whole country. And you know, you don't look at the way you've gotten something that over 100 million Kenyans will never get an opportunity like that. 100 years from now, tutakuwa tukisema over maybe 1 billion Kenyans will never get such an opportunity. Alafu ukipata hiyo opportunity, unaamua since hasa wamekosana mimi, since wame hurt feelings zangu, afadhali wa dedi. Alafu najichocha na build ya kanisa. Damn. Nenyewe unachikibila usemaga ndio mtu wa fully religious, waga lazima utoe brain uchukue hiyo kikanda, because the fact that I say uko na kwa kanisa and they think that you actually believe it's beyond me. But najua nimerant for long sana, unashindwa ni aje jo Mwafrika leo na sip nini jo, yeah? Cheki jo na sip hii ni kombucha by Altam Craft. Yes, in the tropical bliss flavor. Kuna flavor ingine pia hapa inaitwa hibiscus ginger red. Alafu pia niko na flavor ingine pia nitakuonyesha baadaye. And kitu ni poa sana, especially kwa msika mimi ule bado sitaki kukunywa mashuge mob kabisa. Unacheki amount per serving ni 20 calories peke yake, ni 20 calories peke yake. And hizi kombucha, and it's interesting mimi najua ni mse sijazoea nini vitu kama hizi. So big shout out to Altam Craft 100% organic. So hii inabidi baki meka kwa fridge, hata isinaharibika haraka. And unachiki kama hii ni so hii tropical bliss imenibamba sana but so utakuwa ukiona jo, hii ni the official drink yangu saizi nikirant. Unajua unashindwa umsani zaje bonga for this long jo bila kusikia chochote jo. Naweza bonga for this long jo hii jo. Inaitwa ni tropical bliss. Yes, kombucha by Altam Craft. Baki umeicheki jo. Ina ni nice kabisa. Eko nene.